get into the weeds on this. It's been gone over a lot. Alright, so what we want to talk about today is the heads and valve train issue on the C6 Z06. It's an issue that's plagued the car since after a few years it came out, and there's just a lot of stuff on the internet and just flying around about it. Not all of it's true, and a lot of it is just sort of speculation. So first I just want to talk about what appears to be the issue, and then I'm going to move on to some common fixes, and then finally give sort of just my final thoughts on this issue. So, like I was just saying, a lot of it is just kind of speculation and conjecture. Facts are kind of hard to find and come by because GM has only sort of really acknowledged that there actually even is an issue. It's hard because also a lot of us in the sort of performance world, we go online, parts of the car community, and every time there's a car that's sort of impacted by it, it really it gets magnified online. I mean, that's true kind of with everything these days. So I'm just going to go over some of the basics, and I want to stress that it's not going to be super in-depth. There's tons of people who know a lot more about this than I do. This is just kind of like a very high-level overview to people who are just, considering buying one of these cars, or for those who actually already own them, who are kind of wondering, hey, is my car going to be affected? Is this going to be an issue that I'm going to have to address down the road? I'm not going to be getting into the weeds on this one. It's not going to be super in-depth. There's a lot of information out there online that you can sort of search for if you want to. I wouldn't actually even be the best source for that, so I would hate to speak about something I don't really know very well, because a lot of those tech specs, they go beyond my knowledge. So if you want to look in more, I suggest the forums, and just doing a regular just kind of Google search. Okay, so first I want to talk about what actually happens. So this mostly revolves around the exhaust valve stems breaking. It appears that the vast majority are on the exhaust valves. It looks to be, and this is unofficial numbers again, that roughly about 70% or so are the exhaust side. The intake side doesn't seem to be quite as plagued by these problems. However, there are also reports that this is more of a rocker issue on the intake guide side load due to offset rockers. Again, I'm not 100% sure on that. No one's ever really said, what exactly it is. So that's just kind of like the basics of what, appears to be happening. So then I want to move on to, how do you actually know if you have a problem? The easiest way is a noisy valve train. That seems to be the most common way of people before they know their engines are going to go. The problem with that is that the LS7 in general is a fairly noisy motor. So a lot of people have, they go into this, already knowing about these heads issues. So they just hear a lot of noise and chatter and think, oh no, it must be my valve train. When a lot of the time it is just the engine, being a very large, loud performance engine. So, and there also are plenty of times where people have, dropped valves when their engines have not made really any noise. It sort of kind of goes. So, you keep that in mind. That is probably the most prevalent way of knowing. The other is there's going to be a lot of smoke, but I think most people, when they would see something in their engine that is smoking, that would raise sort of a red flag of, oh no, something bad's about to happen. So that's not one that's going to really catch people off guard. Next, I want to talk about what years are impacted. This one's pretty simple. All of them, unfortunately. However, it does seem to impact the earlier ones more, kind of the 06 through 09. And particularly, it does appear that the 08 has this issue the most. Now, that's not verified by anyone. That's what I'm saying. That's not, a fact. That just seems to be what's on the online community. It just seems that the 08s a lot of people with the 08s are the ones that are reporting the problem. All right, so what causes this issue? Beyond it just being a performance motor with a very finicky valve train, I guess the biggest problem though is that no one really knows, and GM hasn't really acknowledged again that there is a problem. So I'm just going to now kind of go over some of the theories out there, no particular order, but just these are some of the ones that are out there that seem to hold the most weight. The first, and this one actually, I should go back and say that this one is probably the most the most agreed upon, is incorrect head machining. This also stems back to what I was saying about the 08s. It appears that most were coming from one certain supplier. However, I've never seen a name of the supplier or whatnot, or who GM was using. However, it does seem that they kind of narrowed it down to that, and then once they kind of moved on from that, or that supplier fixed it, the heads issues didn't seem to be quite as big of a deal going forward. Again, that's not verified. Another theory out there is that the exhaust valves, they're very thin-walled and hollow stems, so that can also cause some issues. And then just some rough spots on the valves themselves. That's probably more of a quality control issue. And thanks GM. I gotta love the American cars for that one. Another one that's out there is just insufficient guide length. And then the last one, and this is one that I haven't really heard a whole lot about it. I actually just heard of it this morning when I was kind of just going over and verifying my information to make sure that I had the best information out there. And this is that, for 06 and 07, it could have been a rocker issue that caused a needle bearing failure. I'm not really sure exactly, how that works. I've seen in a couple threads, I saw some pictures of where it's going to be hitting, and it does look kind of, off center or kind of hitting all over the place. So maybe it is. That's just sort of a theory out there that I'm just learning about now. So I'll probably do some more research, on that one as soon as I'm done with this. All right. And now, I want to talk about what can you do? As far as a head fix is concerned, this is kind of a straightforward fix. It's by no means the end-all be-all. I know there's a lot of people out there on the internet with a lot more knowledge than me who can probably chime in and give you a more technical breakdown. But this is kind of just, again, a very high level. I can't stress it enough. Replace the guides, inspect and replace the exhaust valves, inspect and either replace or, treat and polish the intake valves, valve job, new valve seals and locks. Inspect the valve springs for fatigue and retainers for wear. It's very minor resurfacing of the head, and inspect rocker arms to ensure proper white pattern and and no loose bearings. And then inspect the lifters and finally new head gaskets, head bolts, stuff like that. Pretty straightforward. So again, there's going to be a lot more stuff than that, but that's just sort of the very quick fix of how to do it. So now I want to talk about kind of my own conclusion. And it's tough because we all love cars and we all want cars to be super, super reliable. So, the fact is, though, is that, we all chose or are going to choose, purchasing and maintaining, a C6 Z06, which is, let's be honest, it's a high revving, high output engine with, an inherently, unstable valve train. It's, got a very aggressive geometry, aggressive camshaft design, and, potential, oiling and cooling issues within the valve train. If you do, if you go into that aware of that, then you choose to accept that, even with the kind of fixes out there, you always are going to be running the risk of some sort of catastrophic failure, or at a very minimum, faster valve train wear and tear than your just kind of normal, commuter car. I would love for, my C6 Z06 to be as reliable as is my, my Acura that I drive every single day. That's just not going to be the case. However, I will say the C6 Z06 is a lot more fun to, to drive around. All right, so now I want to kind of go over just my own conclusion. The fact is, if you choose to purchase this car with this LS7, or you're going to be, purchasing one, which is why you're here and watching this, you accept the fact that it's sort of, it's a high revving, high output engine with, an inherently unstable drivetrain with aggressive geometry, aggressive camshaft design, and potentially, oiling issues and cooling issues within the valve train itself. If you acknowledge all that, then you are choosing that. You're choosing to accept that, all these potential problems, and even though with all these fixes, it's a performance car, so you can still grenade an engine in, 50 miles, no matter what, just that those things kind of happen. What you do have with these fixes, though, is that you address known defects in the original manufacturing process that are just huge contributors to premature and catastrophic failure. So if you take these fixes, you've just put the odds significantly more in your favor. that to prevent anything catastrophic from happening to you and your car. The valve train still requires regular checks. Don't get me wrong. Some people have said that you should check it every 15 to 20,000 miles. My car doesn't even get close to that, so I don't know how often I'm going to actually really be checking mine. But you have to just ensure that parts are wearing appropriately and nothing has gone, haywire or is way out of spec. The fixes above kind of combined with routine and simple checks on the systems can just dramatically increase the reliability of your car, as well as just the ability to predict somewhat accurately what's going on, kind of what the future holds, so there's no surprises. This is just kind of just what just the smart thing to do. Just identify the risks and try to avoid them as best as you can. Or mitigate or monitor them. There's no such thing as a 100% guarantee. I cannot stress that enough. Nothing is guaranteed to, work forever, be fixed forever. This applies to everything in life, not just these cars. So, accept that, and make your choices. With that all being said, it's not super likely, though, if you're just kind of driving around your Z06 and do a couple spirited highway pulls or some, stoplight racing, that you're really going to, encounter many issues. There's plenty of people out there, and they love to chime in on these kind of threads and videos of, oh, I've got 70,000 miles on my car and the stock heads, and it's fine. There's plenty of people out there, so it's not necessarily that this is going to happen. It obviously, goes without me needing to be said that if you modify a car that you are, or race it a lot, you are really increasing your risks of this happening without, taking some of the preventative steps and fixes, kind of what I listed above. The bottom line, though, and this is kind of what the hard part about it is that we don't really know, a whole lot about this. I mean, there's over, 10, getting close to 15 years of research on this, and there's still no definitive answer. I think the real problem, though, is that, again, being in the online car community, these things just take kind of like a life of their own, and especially when it comes to things like an engine failure, that makes people kind of freak out just because that's usually a big cost. For example, I have a friend that has a Lamborghini Aventador who might have just grenaded his motor, and they're telling him it's going to be $80,000 to $120,000 to fix. That would suck. Now, these engines are much cheaper than that, but just, either way, it's not a fun expense. So I think that's a lot of the reason of why people kind of go so crazy about this issue. No one really knows how many cars it affected, so, you could just keep your car stock and go through life and nothing bad will happen. I'm sure there's actually plenty of people out there. I'm sure there's a ton of old guys out there who have these cars who maybe drive them like once a month and have owned them since 2006, 2007, and the cars are fine. So again, really just for me personally, I want peace of mind, so I'm going to probably be doing a heads and cam package this year because I decided I want to keep the car around, and I'll obviously be doing some videos based on that, so hey, good content on it. But yeah, I hope this video was a little bit informative for guys, and I know, again, there's people out there who know a lot more about it than I do. I just kind of wanted to cover the basics of it, and, if you want more information on it, there's plenty of resources out there. And again, I would suggest checking, the vet forums. That's a great place, and there's plenty of resources online. So with that said, I appreciate it, guys, and I will see you next time.